Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of QuickMail.io.
And this is Amar with ZenMaid. And today we are going to be talking about a problem that I have been thinking about in ZenMaid for some time. And that is what essentially does it look like for ZenMaid to go from where we currently are to 200K a month and beyond. And that's something that's been weighing down my mind a little bit. And so, yeah, I mentioned that to Jeremy while we were chatting about what to potentially run through on today's podcast, and that's what we decided to dig into. So, I think it's one of the episodes where it really goes into like the real life of our businesses.
Nice. I love it. I mean, whenever I
Yeah.
can look at a business, a bit closer and get to ask questions, like for me, it's awesome. I get always a lot of things in terms of insight, way of understanding how the other person is approaching their business. And hopefully you listener will also learn, quite a lot of things about how a business owner is asking another business owner how his business is doing and what could be done, next year. So not a lot of theory in a sense and a lot more practical. That's the best talk for me, hopefully for you too. So
let's do it.
Let me start with a few simple questions. Like, first of all, do you think right now the 200K is achievable? That's sort of like first question. And the second question is like, is it already trending that way? Which means like, is it a stretch goal or is it like just like continuation of what you're currently guys are doing?
That's a good question. So I guess it's definitely a continuation. It's just a question of like how long. So when I look at our retention rate, like on our revenue for the past couple of months, I'm looking at like, it essentially feels like without significant kind of improvements to various things in ZenMaid that we might top out, let's say around like 160, 170K a month. And like, I'm confident that we can break through that and that we can go ahead and like break 200K. But I feel like the sooner that we get there, the better. Which I'm sure can always be said about any like revenue level, but I just
You're
feel
becoming
like
impatient.
that revenue level. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we should be able to guarantee it by like Q3 of next year. And
the 200K or the 160K? Like the plateau?
200K.
The 200K.
200K. Yeah. And I feel like that seems reasonable to me, but also more and more it feels like a stretch goal when I take into account that like we probably are going to plateau unless we figure like some things out quite quickly, because we are quickly approaching that like plateau like level, right? We're a couple of months away.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Good to know. How do you actually know about that? Like, is it because you're looking at profit well and then you see sort of like the curve like slowing down? Like, what is actually the tools to figure out like you're gonna reach a plateau?
I don't do it like exactly, but like the back of the napkin math is essentially looking at what our revenue retention rate is and essentially at what point our new business growth is just not going to be outgrowing that retention rate. Okay. So around 160K right now is when that retention rate will just begin to drown out our new growth.
Cool. And so what you're mentioning is basically you have two levers. You have one which is increasing retention and the other one which is increasing new business growth. And so you're thinking like next year, this is more going to be a retention game. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. What are some of the initiatives? Oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was thinking like, what are some of the initiatives that you're currently putting in place so that when you will reach the potential plateau or whatever, you will be able to pass through?
So right now, so tomorrow we are starting with a new designer to go through and to redesign our onboarding, and then the entire app, like every single page in the app is going to get a review, and this is from someone who we think is going to be a very, very like good fit for ZenMaid. And then we also hired a top-notch mobile developer who's already taking our mobile apps to completely like new level in terms of like stability and you know, he's starting to add in new features and all that, and that's been the weak point in ZenMaid for quite a while. So those two things alone we're hoping will break us through, but we can't count on that.
If I understand it, you got the mobile dev working on pain points you guys are already knowing, and so you're trying to remove this pain point so you keep the retention potentially. And then the other thing is the new onboard, the new designer for the onboarding will be probably affecting both the conversion rate, like how much you know people go from trials to paid, as well as the retention, people having a better you know early experience and then staying longer. Is that the theory or the assumptions so far?
Yes, that pretty much nails it.
Cool. Out of those two ones, if you can only pick one for next year, let's say either your designer default on you and then you don't have any more designer, or the mobile dev default on you, you don't have any mobile dev, or whatever happens, if you can pick only one of those two, which one do you think has the biggest impact possible on your retention?
Well, so assuming that we could do some things on the mobile app, so like assuming that we could take some new designs and put them into the mobile app, I'd probably say the designer is more important. But yeah, it's a tough one. They're both pretty similar, because the mobile apps are like core functionality in the app. So getting those better and just working with more precision and consistency is very big to the overall usability and success of the app. But we're also aware that at this point the design is hurting us. It's pretty close. I guess I would say the mobile apps. Getting the mobile apps working like perfectly first and foremost would have to be the first priority.
Right. So this is a big pain point at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay, I got that. I mean, you know, leading 2 initiatives per year is not really a big deal. Do you have any other sort of like initiatives you want to sort of like lead at the same time, or like anything on the back of your head, or not yet?
Well, I mean, it's not like those are the only two things that we have planned. Those are like the only two things for like the, you know, just like, I guess, kind of on this topic. So we are working on like upgrading Rails. We're still working on like removing bugs from the web app and just trying to get completely bug free,
general sort
as
of like
well as
maintenance and stability kind of thing that are not
necessarily
necessarily linked to that plateau stuff that will come. Also, you know, it will prevent some potential churn if there is a problem in the future, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think other than that, it's really just continuing to build some new features and stuff like that. But I mean, it's just kind of the normal like day-to-day stuff that we're doing to just constantly like improve the app. I don't think there's any like big releases that we expect to be like game changers for us or whatever. We're just hoping to keep improving it so that the churn just slowly goes down. Because, you know, you're talking that if it goes down by 0.25%, it makes a pretty darn big difference to like our bottom line numbers at this point, right? So, you know.
Yeah, one thing we discussed in a past episode is about the price increase, but the idea behind that is getting basically more revenue per customer. Is that sort of like on the plan? Because that's, historically speaking, that's probably the easiest way to actually obtain like, you know, a highest level of revenue.
Yeah,
right?
we've been considering putting in a premium plan and possibly adding in quarterly pricing. So making quarterly pricing the same as the current like monthly, and then bumping up like the monthly pricing. But we're not planning on doing that until we get most of the bugs out and we really get the software to where we want it to be, right? Like we want no one to be having any issues. We want everyone to be having a perfect experience, and then for us to be announcing like, okay, we're bumping up our prices a little bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's always difficult I mean, historically speaking, from all the company I've been working with, and I knew a bit of business at that time, to my own companies and so on, it's always difficult to have an intense focus initiative on the product, whether it's stability or improvement or whatever, as well as, you know, doing something else like increasing, you know, the revenue on the side. So
Yeah.
It's always a difficult exercise to do both, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about churn. Do you guys have like any overview as to what's the sort of like main reasons or some of the churns that you know are preventable, beside effectively making maybe the software more stable or the experience easier? Like, is there any sort of like big sticky points?
There's like a couple of features that are brought up, but it's never like it's not like a couple like really like big ones. So I'd have to take a look. We do track that. We do ask every single person that that leaves the software, like why they're leaving and what they're going to use instead. So we can take a look at that and that information. But I mean, I feel like it's always just kind of like little things. And as for a while, we kept hearing it was invoicing. So we built invoicing. Now we don't hear that it's invoicing as much anymore. Now it's like it's something else. And so it's always kind of an ongoing game of like whack-a-mole. There's always something,
Welcome to SaaS, right? That's the main idea. So do you have anything like planned for? You mentioned you don't have anything planned, like massive big features or whatever that will help sort of give a shot or an opportunity at marketing. So I'm thinking, like, do you have anything for marketing that will go like differently this year?
Well, we do our marketing very kind of differently. So like our marketing isn't based like really as much around like the product. It's more around kind of like the customer stories and stuff like that. So like we've got a lot of plans on the marketing side, but it's not really like product announcements, right? It's not really like new feature announcements or anything like that, because even some of the biggest projects that we have planned for next year will only actually affect like a small percentage of like users of us like redoing our payroll system, for example, right? So
well, here's the background of why I'm asking that. Is like for QuickMail, for example, us adding the free plan for the auto warmer opened the door, like tremendous door into acquisition, because suddenly a lot more people are aware of QuickMail, a lot more people check out QuickMail just because they're looking for auto warmer. And once they got their inbox auto warmed up, then they may use QuickMail for sending their emails with it. So it was a very good move for us, and it was like purely feature giving us an opportunity at marketing, whether it's like winning with SEO or winning with ads and all those sort of things. Do you have anything like that people are looking that is potentially connects to it, that will effectively just attract a lot more people, or it's not really the game you play next year?
Not that we're going to do. No, it's a lot of effort. I've got some ideas around it, but it's just a lot of effort that we'd be taking away from our actual product, and we just have lots of ways on the marketing side to get in front of people. So yeah, I think it's a really awesome way that you did it. I mean, and we have a free plan now too. It's like it's different, but we have a free plan that we advertise like pretty heavily now on Facebook. But the free tool route is not something that we're going to go down, at least at the moment. It's something we'll consider again in the future.
That's fine. It could have been, it's not necessarily free plan. It could have been like some people were looking, best invoicing for, maid services or something like that. And then you would provide that. And it potentially could be an add-on, that sort of thing, like an extra premium that you pay on it, or for some integration, maybe with Xero or whatever. I don't know your world, but that's the sort of thing like I was thinking. Is profitability something that you will look next year? Because it's all fine, like saying, reaching 200K, but would you actually care about profitability to be increased as well? Or it's just like, it doesn't matter, the cost could also go up?
We're currently at 10% profitability, and I'd like us to go up to 15 or 20% profitability.
Okay, got it.
So it'd still give us a lot more money to spend, but less proportionally.
Right. One of the other thing, and not necessarily for you, but also more for the listeners to reflect on their own business and think of their own business as well, is like, it's very often we see people who are successful with one thing and abandon it to do something else. They get lost, and then after that, they come back to the roots of things that actually made it work. Do you guys have something like, I think you were very strong at advertisement at some point. Like, do you guys like plan to go back into advertisement and sort of like, up that or stay where you are? Like, do you have any plan for that specifically?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, so we're planning on adding more money to our paid ads to Facebook and to Google. We're thinking about adding in Bing as well. So we realized that right now is kind of a time
Internet
where
Explorer. That's the audience.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But right now is kind of a time where because Apple has introduced these new rules and people are more focused on privacy, it's getting harder and harder than ever to like properly track stuff.
Oh, that's
And so when I was talking to John about it, we were just like, maybe this is the time to actually like pour fuel on the fire and to just be everywhere that we possibly can, because a lot of people are going to be pulling back right now with like their ad spend. And so we're just kind of thinking maybe we can just take over the market right now and just like really make a run for 200K and like and beyond.
Got it. Understood.
Yeah.
We usually, again, like probably a side note or whatever, but usually when we sort of like boost up acquisition, tremendously as well, we have to be careful not to have leads falling back, because the capacity after that step is not following, whether it's the software, whether it's the onboarding process, if there is human, or whether it's like support or whatever kind of thing. So that's probably one thing I'll be looking at if suddenly we increase the capacity on one of those elements. Have you thought about totally like out of nowhere kind of thing? But I remember one software who was targeting small business owners. They didn't have like much luck. Well, they were keep on growing slowly, but they started, going like exponentially once they actually figured out that they could actually do advertisement on the radio. And then that actually is where their audience was actually, there. They were not necessarily always like on the internet, because they were not like internet wizard and stuff like that. So is that something that you considered or even think of doing some?
I mean, like radio won't work for us. That won't work for us. But you can take the same principles though, right? Like I think that we could do like podcast advertising, for example, that like we could run ads on a bunch of like maid service like podcasts, right, from some of the consultants in the industry. But yeah, radio wouldn't work.
Yeah, so sponsoring influencers type of thing in your industry.
Yeah, and we do some of that, but we could definitely get more aggressive about it, and particularly more systematized around it, right? That like there's no reason that we can't line up so that we have a promotion going on with like 5 or 10 influencers at once, so it just seems like we're everywhere for a week.
Okay, got it. What about
that'd be a really good way.
What about small yeah, because that could actually fit into your whole strategy of like suddenly make a lot of awareness. So you're thinking like acquisition at the moment is based on awareness, retention is based on product stability and providing a mobile experience that is good.
Yeah,
that's whole in a nutshell, right? Have you looked at maybe smaller competitors, the one who actually always find like one things to advertise that actually helps people to move, like in our industry we had also that, like a few of competitors that came out of nowhere just providing like a really small feature that we thought like, why should we actually bother doing that?
I need to go through and review them again. Yeah, I haven't reviewed them in at least a couple of months, so I've got to go through and see. The last time I checked, they weren't doing anything special. They were just building on a little bit newer technology, which made some of their things look a lot slicker than ours. But that's a big reason that we're doing the redesign.
I always found that fairly easy to actually look at, your small competitors, see which one is actually picking steam, because usually they will build on one or two sort of like feature, like, and they will advertise that very strongly, whether it's free, whether it's like that new way of doing things or some other stuff like that.
Yeah.
Most of the time, with bigger company like us or more incumbent, then it's pretty easy to do. It's just always like a matter of like, should we actually do it or not, kind of thing. Because you don't want your product to become like bloated and stuff like that. Okay, cool. So are you confident with those two main initiatives, which is redesigning things and providing the mobile day thing? You guys are going to reach the 200K, or is there like some
no, I think as
or
long as
you
we
think there's
take
more?
care of that, I think, as long as we take care of that, I think it's inevitable that we're going to hit 200K. I think anything that we do beyond that is really going to determine just how fast. And so I think if the goal is to get there by like, Q3 next year, then like I think it's also going to take some serious marketing. So like one thing is we're about to start doing a lot more email marketing to our list, right? Because we've got a pretty big email list and a pretty small customer base in comparison to the size. So like we're going to start doing a lot more email promotions like to them and stuff, right? And just stuff like that.
Okay, that's an interesting one. How big is the market at the moment? Like, how big do you think like, if you have not necessarily the whole market, but if you think like you're at a reasonable, like what in the realm is what is possible, like how far do you think that goes? Like,
I mean, I think we can easily get up to like 5,000 or 10,000 customers, like in total, I would say. And yeah, I mean that's a couple times how big we are now. So
okay. So that's definitely like feasible, to reach that. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let me think for a second. What are some of the activities that are critical in the system to make sure those two initiatives come on time or come as early as possible and successful?
So I think that's mainly on Alex, my CTO, to kind of like integrate these guys into the team well and like quickly. And so the mobile dev already seems to be moving like pretty quickly and pretty nicely. And then our new designer starts tomorrow. So I think the faster that Alex manages to take what they're working on and help them to get it live, that's essentially what's going to make the difference here. So I'll have a conversation with them actually about that in a couple of hours to really emphasize like the importance of that, because that could make a big difference to our timelines.
Yeah, I would say 100%. It's always important when the sort of like CEO mention, what is really important for the company.
Yeah.
And so it helps, aligning everyone behind a common goal.
Yeah, it's funny that right there might make the entire podcast episode worth recording, just because like emphasizing that is literally going to make the difference here. Like if we can get those guys up and running by like January, where they're both really making a difference, it's going to make such a huge difference to our numbers next year.
That makes sense. Do you have any contingency plan? Like what if, something doesn't turn out well?
I mean, I think we'll take that like as we like get there. I mean, there's not really much that can go wrong here that we could really do much about, right? But by that I just mean that like if working with this new mobile dev, if he ends up breaking something that our other mobile dev like wouldn't have, like based on all the signs that we're seeing, we still would have to be giving him a shot right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so like there's not really much that can really go all that wrong, but it's more like, okay, if these guys do a bunch of work, we make a bunch of like improvements, yet we can't like get people to stay on the app or to convert better, then that probably means that we need to take a step back, reevaluate our strategies, and come back at this again, right? So that's essentially the backup plan.
Here's what I'm suggesting here as a possible thing is involve customer a bit earlier in the design, because very often when we change the design, there is some impact we haven't really thought of. And so you may alienate a part of your user base, which will be counter, intuitive to doing things. The other
Oh, and so then they leave.
Yes, exactly. And so suddenly you have a stronger churn. You think you have a better product. In fact, this happens to one of my competitors, which, I laugh about because they thought like gamification was the way to go, and then it's fun and so on. And so they started doing that direction. Everyone was like, yeah, we're coming to you because, those guys over there, I don't know what the hell they're doing with their interface and stuff like that. They keep on changing. It's always confusing and so on.
Gotcha.
And so, you could, by mistake, actually just, do the wrong thing without necessarily knowing it, right? And the other contingency thing that I'm thinking of is redesigning things bit by bit. Even for you can, and you probably should have like a global overview of how you want it to be done. Redesigning modules after modules would actually be important for us. We redesigned or like sign up process, and that's the only thing we looked at. We just did the sign up process.
That's what we're doing first.
Right?
Yeah,
exactly.
That's exactly what we're doing.
And then we did the, organization dashboard. And so we just reviewed that. We still need to change one or two things to, accommodate one or two more customers and so on. But we also gave the ability to go back to the old interface as well. So people can stay on the old interface, and then we're monitoring how many people actually do keep using the old interface, right? Those sort of things actually are helpful when they thought ahead of time. Because if you actually go for a switch, then you become, between a rock and a hard place, which is if you go back, then people will start complaining because they've seen what it could be. And then the other one will complain because you don't have everything the other one had, which is basically common in development, which is it's always hard to do 100% exact as it was, in terms of feature and stuff like that before. So always be slightly careful with that, I would say, as a recommendation, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Cool.
That's helpful.
Yeah, one thing I will ask as well is, did you sort of like, and it's fine if you didn't, but did you actually think of like quantifying all those sort of like initiatives? Like how much do you really think is going to move the needle? Like, have you done some math to it?
I mean, I do some loose math, but I hate that stuff.
I know, that's why I'm asking.
I'm just trying to, I mean, I know that to go from where we are to 200K next year, we have to grow by like essentially around $5,000 or $6,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue on average for 12 months, right? So like if you take into account that, meaning that we'll grow like anywhere from like 8 to 12K like in a single month, and then we'll likely also have months where maybe we even go down a little bit or we don't really grow at all. I'm thinking that like we could probably keep up that pace for next year. But then like that's why improving some of these numbers is going to make it that much easier to reach our goals.
Okay, that makes sense. What if someone like a VC came and bought you? What do you think? Like, there's those private firms or whatever, private equity firms, I think, where they just buy a software, they do some cool magic trick stuff, and then suddenly, the money goes up, right? It's like, and they keep on doing that on repeat. What sort of things do you think someone else will do to your business?
Probably just paid advertising and just putting more money in.
Yeah.
Putting more money in paid advertising. So that's what we're trying to do.
But that wouldn't help with retention, we're waiting, right?
It wouldn't help with retention. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, a VC fund would come in and make it so in order to cancel, you'd have to call a phone number, and then they'd run away laughing.
Didn't that become like illegal in some part of US or some stuff like that?
Yeah, that the FTC just ruled that if you can sign up online, they can't force you to call them to cancel. If you have to call them to sign up, then you can call them to cancel.
Nice. That sort of like makes sense, honestly,
right?
Honestly speaking.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Cool. Awesome, dude. Anything else? This is really helpful. This is really great for me.
I was only barely scratching the surface, but I understand we got a limited number of time. So I think we could leave it here.
Obviously, all right. What was your hardest hitting question? What's the one thing you wanted to ask me?
Good question. Let me think for a second. In fact,
are you happy?
I'm gonna pause this this thing so I can think hard, and I'm gonna resume it. Okay, we are back after 6 hours of thinking of the ultimate question. Now, honestly, before I ask you this quick question, like, could you actually give us a number on the actual churn, or you want to keep that?
Number on the actual churn. So the past like couple of months, our revenue churn has been between 4 and 5%.
So this is super interesting. Actually, this is not what I was expecting. Because what is your sort of like goal in churn?
Goal, I would say acceptable to me is like sub 2%, and then ideal would be negative.
Oh, because you're going revenue churn. Are you not concerned
Revenue
about
churn.
logo churn? Which is, for those who are listening,
more,
is basically actual clients you're losing more than the revenue.
Not really. I mean, I keep an eye on it to just make sure that there aren't any like red flags there, but our goals are all set around revenue retention.
Okay, that makes sense because the goal of the company is to make money.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the question. What would need to happen to, now I can't say cut the churn in 4, but I will say to go minus 4%. What would need to happen?
Okay. Yeah, so getting everything to just like work, right? Like so removing a lot of the bugs. We would definitely need to redo our payroll to accommodate quite a few more different kind of pay types and all of that. Potentially redoing our booking forms, but that might not like really be like necessary. I feel like it would be kind of a super software if we were able to do that. Let's see, what else within the product? Adding in a couple more like email and SMS communications. And then maybe building like native integrations with a couple of like tools. Yeah.
All of that will lead to negative churn, you think?
I would think so.
Because all of that is to reduce logo churn. You haven't increased prices or extension, so you can't get negative churn at this stage.
Well, no, you can by just like churning less people. Most of the optimization that we're doing is around keeping more and more customers. Like we want to make sure that our customers are growing over time, which is where like the revenue retention kind of comes into play. But like retaining more customers reduces our like our revenue retention rate, right? So closer to like to negative. So yeah,
okay,
a lot of the stuff is around.
Here's the thing that I will think of, and then I think we can sort of like wrap it up. Is that the thing I can think of is like there's a lot of things to reduce the actual churn of people leaving the platform. And I don't see much initiative to actually increase the revenue per user, which will effectively help tremendously to get you a negative churn.
I wouldn't really consider that negative churn if you're just raising prices on new users though, or on like current users, right? Like you could do that and you could take a one-time like bump, but like I'm more looking at this in terms of like long-term like growth, right?
Well, that's not really what I mean. Like, for example, you could potentially like one of the native integration you're mentioning, you could potentially monetize this one, which will then lead to more revenue per user. Right. And that wouldn't be necessarily anything to do with, new customer needs to pay more. The other thing is another initiative that could be put in. And again, I don't know your business, exactly. So it's just like idea shooting, in the dark kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that could be another way is to refactor, the actual usage of the software on a per product or per feature basis type of things, like remapping what is a tier 1, level, like, most of the software that pay per employee, they got like, if you want access to those things, like you need to pay more per employee, those sort of thing. And that will effectively help you grow the sort of like revenue per user. So it's interesting. Also, it's really interesting to see a lot of initiatives that are done toward reducing the churn, getting a better experience so people stick longer and so on. It's sort of like there's another level that doesn't seem to be explored, and maybe that's a small conversation, so that may be totally wrong. A small other level that is effectively getting even more revenue per customer besides having them growing on their own. So that's sort of the thing that I'm thinking of. He's, you know, Brett, for example, he does this sort of like white glove stuff where like the optimizer, where they actually go into the account and help optimizing that. Not something that I would consider for my business, definitely, because I hate, you know, the sort of like agency style of things, but that could be also something that I was thinking of. I'll let you carry on.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought when we paused the recording there. What were you saying about Brett?
No, I say Brett, you know, had this sort of like manual like optimizer where they actually just help manually
yeah. No, there's no way we're doing that.
Yeah, me neither.
I don't consider that.
But that's
I
the
don't
idea
consider that
of like
revenue. Like that. That's like if we made 200K in revenue and it was because we were offering services like that, I would. That just doesn't count.
Would you rather, you know, being your left arm or your right leg?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. No, but that's all really helpful. That's really yeah, that's really helpful. I'm just trying to figure out how can we guarantee that it happens like next year, and hopefully that we can hit it in like in Q3. So yeah, appreciate it.
All right. Well, if you get any good ideas, like I think honestly for the listener, we just, you know, barely scratch the surface. We probably will need like another 2-3 sessions in order to really figure out like what is the
really dig
biggest
into it,
lever or really help. And it may just confirm, you know, what you're saying. There's nothing wrong in that. But hey, you know, if you want to hit us, just tell Amar how to run his business. It's on Twitter. It's just Amar. Tell him that he's doing all wrong, and that's how he should be doing it. I'm sure he'll love it and appreciate it. But if you have any other questions, just, you know, shoot him and me some message.
Sounds good. See you next time.
Bye, Amar.